To start off my week 2 lower body training session, I wanted to start with calves. Calves is something that I have trained throughout my lifting career, but not consistently enough. Um, I do like to run quite a bit and I walk a lot, either at work or just in general. I do get quite a few steps in, typically anywhere from 4 to 6 miles a day when I'm not working. And if I am working, I walk a little bit further, something like 6 or 7 miles a day. Um, but with this training program, I really want to make sure that I hit everything as much as I possibly can. So I wanted to start with calves today. So I made sure that I could do them and I could do them to my greatest extent. Plus, doing calves, particularly at the beginning, is probably not going to negatively impact the exercises I do later on in the workout. So I wanted to make sure I got them in and got them out of the way.
This weight vest is a super easy way to add some resistance for something like a standing calf raise. It's a little bit difficult to hold on to anything because then I get a little bit of a uneven distribution of resistance. It's also pretty difficult to use a barbell on my back. So this weight vest, I've got about 30 pounds in here. Perfect. I love this weight vest too. It's super like compact, sticks on me really good. Um, I even use this for like rucking. I do weighted incline walks on the treadmill, and I've even taken this for runs when I've done like things like the Murph. This is um, the weight vest that I use. So as you can probably see, as I'm doing those calf raises, I'm really making sure that I'm getting as big of a stretch as I possibly can. I've actually got that wedge, the same wedge that I use for squatting, up on two different plates so that way I can get a maximum stretch in my calves. A lot of people think that going all the way up, trying to get a good contraction in the calves is what grows you. And while I agree that that's definitely important, there's actually been some research that when individuals train calves and trained more in the lengthened position, not even going all the way up, they grew more in their calves than people doing a full range of motion. So I like to do both. Like I said in a previous video, I'm a big advocate of full range of motion, but specifically for calves, something that's super stubborn, something I don't train enough, um, doing full repetitions and then kind of finishing sets with a lengthened sort of partial, doing that bottom half, ensuring that full stretch is really going to help improve my calf size, and it can help yours too. Man, it is crazy how much my calves are pumped already. I've done 3 sets and I'm almost to the point where I can't feel my calves contracting anymore. This super steep incline really helps to get a good stretch and really fatigue the calves like almost immediately. Ah, damn, I can tell my calves are gonna be so sore already.
Here we're getting back into lying leg curls using my seated row machine. Um, this is actually a really awesome way for me to really hammer my hamstrings. Um, the constant resistance of the cable allows me to get a good contraction. It allows me to sort of focus on the eccentric portion of the exercise too. Um, and it helps me, make sure that I'm getting in good hamstring exercises. Working at home, it's a little difficult to hit my hamstrings effectively other than using like barbell or dumbbell movements. So being able to incorporate this into my program has really um, given me quite a bit of benefit, particularly for leg training.
So obviously this setup that I have using my lat pull down seated row machine for leg curls is not ideal. I would of course love to have a machine, but this actually works pretty well to be honest, and I actually like the fact that the resistance is almost constant because that cable is actually like pulling against me, whereas a machine, yeah, you're going to have that happen with gravity as you know the pad that's on your ankle is pulling you down. But there's a point at which gravity is no longer directly impacting the resistance on your legs. Even when I'm all the way contracted, this cable is still pulling on my legs, allows me to sort of resist against that pulling. Could potentially help grow my hamstrings. Definitely better than nothing at all. One of the things that I've been fortunate to learn over the years with training is that your mind likes to play little tricks with you when you're going through a tough training set. You know, sometimes it hurts. Sometimes you're already a bit fatigued. On that last set, once I got to about rep 11, my mind was telling me that I was about done with the set. And I was thinking to myself, I can't believe my legs are already this fatigued that I need to stop. Fortunately, with experience, I know that that's usually not the case. That's usually about the time of the set where I'm going to start making some real progress. As you might have counted, I was able to get to 20, probably had 3 or 4 more reps in the tank, even at 20. So, something you got to learn is that even when you start to feel fatigue, your body can go a lot farther. I'm a big follower of David Goggins, and one of the things that he talks about is that most people don't know true failure. When they think they're failing, they're probably at around like 40% of their capacity. And I've got to tell you, that couldn't be more true. Especially, when I lived in Colorado, I did a lot of trail running and actually was able to do a trail marathon out in Moab, Utah. Before I did that marathon, I had never run more than 10 miles. And even when I was doing the 10-mile runs at home, you know, out on the trail, not necessarily in the mountains, I did do some mountain training, but even those runs were difficult. And then when I got out on the actual course, 10 miles felt like absolutely nothing. That was not even half of the marathon. And it was not even fathomable for me to quit at that 10-mile mark. A marathon is 26.2 miles, and you think to yourself, there's no way I can run 26 miles if I've never even come close to that. But the truth is, you're way more capable of going past the limits that you set on yourself, no matter what you think. So you might have noticed that today I didn't start with barbell back squat. And to be honest, I'm not even going to do that today. I'm going to do another variant of squatting known as a belt squat. I use the jammer arms for that. You'll be able to see that in a few minutes. The reasons that I'm not doing that today, there's actually a couple. The first is fatigue. My upper body workout that I did a day ago to start this week off was a huge workout, and it was a very challenging workout in terms of volume, like the number of repetitions I did combined with the amount of resistance I used. But it was also like really taxing on my nervous system. I feel fatigued, a little bit run down. Back squat, um, it's really challenging. You know, it's it loads directly on your spine. It's typically pretty heavy, and I mean, for me, relatively speaking, that 230 pounds that I used was pretty heavy because I'm not as adapted to heavy barbell squatting yet. Even though I've been doing it for a long time, I just recently got back into doing it all the time. Um, Another reason is that while the back squat is, of course, an awesome leg workout, I actually think of it more as a total body exercise. You know, you think you have the weight loaded on your back, trying to keep your back tight, keeping your core braced really hard. Yeah, you're driving through your legs and your feet, and it is primarily a lower body exercise, but it's very much a global exercise, something that works your entire body all at once. With the exercises that I'm doing today, it's allowing me to focus more so directly on specific musculature. You know, I started off with calves. I can really focus on specifically contracting and stretching my calves, doing some lunges to help hit hamstrings and glutes and some quads. You know, you saw me do the lying leg curls, very hamstrings specific. After I do this, I'm going to go into that belt squat. The way that my belt squat is set up, it's very much quad focused for me. By the time I get done with it, I usually have a huge quad pump, not much glute involvement, not much hamstring involvement. The way that I do it, it actually mimics what's known as a pendulum squat, which again really kind of hammers your quads pretty hard. So that's the primary reason that I'm not doing back squat today. Now I'm going to have another leg workout at the end of this week. And during that workout, I am going to back squat. First of all, because I want to practice that movement. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to get my body acclimated to squatting regularly, getting into that good position, and just adapting to the movement in general. But also because doing the back squat, like I was saying, you know, really allows you to apply a lot of resistance to your body at once. And for me, that's a huge growth motivator.
So, like I was saying, the reason that I decided to use the belt squat for this workout is really twofold. First, it adds variety to my training. Um, while I do love doing the squat, I think it's one of the most effective exercises known to man. Um, I don't want to do it every single time I train. I like to add a little bit of variety. This exercise in particular allows me to target my quads a little bit more specifically than uh, just the barbell back squat, but also because this movement is far less fatiguing than a barbell back squat. If I'm doing barbell back squat for, sets of 8 and above, that's exhausting. Uh, Particularly if I'm doing 4 or 5 working sets of, you know, big repetition sets for the back squat, like that's exhausting. And yesterday I had just done a really big upper body workout. I'm already fatigued. So not only does it increase my risk of injury if I, get under a barbell, that barbell exercise, if I were to jump right back into squat, I might not be able to train at the intensity that I want or the intensity that I need to produce a training adaptation. So that's why I decided to use the belt squat. I knew it was something that I could manage. I knew it was something that I could put a lot of effort into and get a good stimulus, but not have to like deal with the residual fatigue of the training session that I had the day prior. In your situation, maybe you're lucky enough to have a belt squat at your gym. Chances are you probably don't if you go to a commercial gym, which is okay. In that case, just use something like a leg press. Um, there's a number of different styles of leg press. They're all going to pretty much do the exact same thing for you. And that'll help you, target specific muscles within your legs, but it won't be as impactful on your, global fatigue as doing a barbell back squat. Now, I do think you should do the barbell back squat as much as you can just because it's such an awesome movement. I think it gets you into a good movement pattern. Plus, it hits so many muscles at once and allows you to use a ton of resistance, but you don't have to use it all the time. If you don't have a leg press, even go a step, you know, a step lower and, consider using a dumbbell for a dumbbell goblet squat or do just standard dumbbell squats. It really doesn't matter. As long as you're going throughout the movement, hitting those legs, you can pretty much use any exercise you want.
Connected with my trainer and then running my workouts is you can get a super effective workout by dialing in certain zones of training. So say like I said, this is a sweet spot workout. We're spending a lot of time at 265 watts, which right now my FTP is still set at 300. We'll keep it at 300 until I retest. And the goal of these sessions is not just to get on the bike and log miles or accumulate volume, but it's to spend time at certain intensities within certain zones to build fitness, to build aerobic capacity, to build muscular endurance, leg strength. There's a lot we're trying to get out of these sessions, and these are specifically designed to produce those outcomes.
So I'm actually a pretty big fan of doing step ups. I think it's a really cool movement. It definitely puts your hamstrings and glutes um, in a stretch position under load. Um, but I also like it because it's really practical. I think that doing step ups has a lot of like real world relevance. There are plenty of times, at least in my life, where I've needed to, you know, step up on a platform under load or, particularly at work, or if I need to like go upstairs carrying resistance. that's something that's going to transfer into real life ability. This not only works your legs, but it's definitely going to be working your core, and allow you to be able to develop force under load in a somewhat compromised position. So while not every exercise has a direct, carryover into real life, the whole functional fitness idea, I do think that this is one of those movements that can have real world applicability. So it might be worth putting into your program.
So I'm actually a pretty big fan of doing step ups like this. First of all, it's a really good full body workout, but also I think it really hammers both my hamstrings and my quads pretty good. The only thing when you're doing step ups you really got to pay attention to, if you notice while I was doing it, first I was making sure that I was stepping fully onto the bench, making sure I had a really good hold on the bench, so that way I wasn't going to tip and the bench wasn't going to tip. But also, you'll notice if you watch my next set, after I put my foot up on the bench, I like to shift my weight forward a little bit, brace my core, and then make sure that I press through the foot that's on the bench. One of the things that a lot of people do, myself included, I'm trying to minimize it as much as possible. But when you're especially under load, you're going to want to kick off of that back foot. And that's not necessarily the focus of this exercise. So the next time you try doing step ups, really think about that. Step onto the bench, shift your weight forward a little bit, track your knee a little bit over your toes, and shift your mind to driving through that front foot that's on the bench while simultaneously trying to minimize the amount of force that you're producing with your back foot. Once you get fully up onto the bench, I suggest, for the most part, putting both feet up onto the bench, one for balance and two to make sure that you actually finish the rep. On your way down, don't just drop. Try and resist your way down almost as if you were doing a single leg squat. That way you get that full stretch and really take advantage of the eccentric portion of that movement too. Came back, had dinner, washed up, got the kids to bed. The way my program is scheduled and structured right now, Saturday mornings are my long run. Last week was week 1 of prep. That was my first long run of prep. That was 14 miles. Tomorrow, week 2, will be 15 miles. And I add 1 additional mile per week. So I'll go 16, 17, 18. After that, I will go back and forth between the minimum pace of my long run mileage to be 14 miles at the minimum. And I'll rotate in longer runs, and then we'll start incorporating structured marathon prep paced workouts. So right now we're slowly, week by week, mile by mile, increasing long run total miles. So 15 miles. This is my nutrition for tomorrow morning. So I'll wake up around 4:15 a.m. I'll be running by 5 or 5:15 a.m. I already have it mixed up in a shaker bottle. So it's 1 scoop of regular GRAM Sport and 1 scoop of GRAM Sport.
bar before I pick up the run. So this is pre-run nutrition. And then during the run, I will have 2 dildos. This is all the fuel that I will have during my
frozen gummy pop. Some online checking and the great clips.
during my 15 miles. Before and during.
Okay, so we are 10 miles.